Good morning, afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Multiverse Funraiser. We are so happy to be with you here today. I am George, and this is my buddy Clyde over here. We are talking about must read comics here, but we're going obscure. Tell a little bit about what you've got for in store for us today, Clyde.
Well, I've got a little bit of everything. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of stuff, and some of it you might go, "Well, I've heard that. How obscure is it?" There are some of these have little details that make them um, not forgotten, but kind
Mm-hmm.
of second. I would call them second-class citizenry
There you
trades
go.
or runs. So, and mine go from the 2000s back to 1965.
Nice. Yeah, let's see. I'm pretty much the 80s all the way up to the mid 2000s for my selections here. So, yeah, and also kind of by default, um, a lot of these books, probably most of these books, you can find in your dollar bins in your local comic shop. So, basically, you can get off on the cheap on a lot of this stuff here, too.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So, and of course, we are here for the Multiverse Funraiser in honor of comic books for kids. So, the crawl you see down at the bottom of your screen there basically is where you can go to donate. So, I believe. I haven't seen what the update was for this week or for today, but last time I checked, we were like around 700 or something like that. So,
And I
so yeah.
guarantee you, if you've ever been a comic book fan,
Mm-hmm.
when they talk about, when people my age, my generation were sick and home from school, it was, cartoons, cartoon. Mine was cartoons and comic books.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is that books can go places that electronics can't when kids are undergoing certain kinds of treatment.
Yep.
That also contain stories, and these are all kid appropriate titles for their age groups, but they also tend to center on people that are sometimes heroes and heroines who are facing really, really drastic odds. That are acting heroically and showing courage and bravery. That can be inspiring to kids. So I am always happy to be part of comic books for kids and getting comic books in the hands of kids that are going through cancer treatment and long hospital stays that need a boost.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, it's not just comic books too. I mean, they offer toys and plushies and pop vinyls and all kinds of just fun things for the kids. And the best part is that comic books for kids is really such a small grassroots organization, but they do a lot of good work to the point that basically the families of these children don't think this stuff is coming from the hospital. They are not aware of what comic books for kids does for them,
Mhm.
and that's the idea. That's how it should be. And then, of course, in recent years, when they would get stuff donated that may not be 100% appropriate for little children, they set up a sister foundation, Comic Books for Troops. And then they
Yeah.
send those items to military bases here in the States and overseas as well. So basically, then troops get to have a little fun too. So,
Yeah. So if you're watching this and you're enjoying the programming, and if you can, please donate. This,
absolutely.
every little bit helps. Last I checked, we were a little over $800 for the weekend so far.
Oh, nice. Great.
Yep, yep.
That's awesome. Yeah, we thank you all very much for your donation. So,
Thank you.
all right, let's get to the comics here, shall we?
Okay.
So, so Elder Statesman of Geekery, you go first, sir.
Okay.
We'll go in chronological order, so we'll talk about your oldest book here.
Okay. So the Thunder Agents. This is a Wally. He didn't like that. Apparently, he didn't like to be called Wally. He liked to be called Wallace Wood. But
Ah,
so this is the same. Also, I got to cover this. Got some of the other more characters on it. Um,
nice.
but yeah. So Thunder Agents. Um, it's a weird. It is just a really weird inclusion because it's not Marvel
Mm-hmm.
and it's not DC.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not Charlton, which at the time in 1965, when it came out, those were the big companies, especially DC and Marvel. And Marvel was just, in 65, Marvel was still on shaky legs. DC
Yep.
was huge.
Yep.
Charlton was established, but not the highest quality. But then along comes Thunder Agents. That's Tower Comics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And the editorial duties and the character concepts and the scripts are, along with some of the art, Wally Wood. But
Hmm.
when he found out what in Tower, they had a business of putting out cheap pulp novels,
Okay.
some kind of girly novels and stuff that were for mature readers at the time,
The salacious material.
the salacious material. But they wanted to get into comics because all of a sudden, the superhero comics were back in a big way in the early 60s. And they wanted a piece of that pie like everybody else did in publishing. So they knew Wallace, so they got a hold of Wally Wood and they said, you can just have like carte blanche. And he's like, oh, I will take that and run with it. And then they said, we need these many titles on the shelves. And he's like, whoa, 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 that's a lot. That's, I don't. So he reached out to people he knew in the industry. That's why the Thunder Agents are great ways to look up people that you may know from other work, like
Yeah.
Steve Ditko,
Hmm.
George Tuska, Gil Kane, Reed Crandall, Mike Sikowski, Dan Adkins, Dick Ayers, Mike Esposito, Bill Pearson, uh,
Hmm.
John Junta, and Steve Skeets.
Wow.
From 65 to 69, over 20 issues, you see all their work in here. Um, Now, so let's look at the two major companies as time progressed. You got DC, where you have all these characters who, you know, good for good's sake, and a little bit snarky by the 60s at times with Superman and some of the big guns. But overall, they're trying to do the right. They're godlike powers, and they're trying, but they're very, very. They operate as justice leagues and things like that, but they live in make believe cities. They live in Metropolis. They're not really part of our world. And then you got Marvel, where everybody lives in New York,
Right.
and these guys really, the things you see on the news, they do. These superheroes deal with that, and it's very soap operatic. It's very in some ways, some people have described it as a neurotic,
Yeah.
um, time for in their view of comics and what it's like to put on a mask, and very humanizing,
Right.
especially for like young readers. Spider-Man, teen angst, big deal, big part of that formula that makes it popular. The Thunder Agents, they're stuck right in the middle.
Hmm.
They are more traditional heroes, but they have the spy genre. They're kind of James Bond and superheroes slapped together. Lots of gimmicks. All of their powers are based on tech.
Yeah.
It's like Q was like in the background making all their stuff for them, and so
Right. Yeah.
so and even though okay, so and they're really human. I mean, there are people that are not good folks.
Mhm.
They're spies. Spycraft. They tend those. If you've ever read any John Carey, they're not always the nicest folks. So one of the
Yeah.
guys, one of the guys called Mentor has mental powers through his helmet. He can control people and kind of like a low grid Professor X in some ways.
Okay.
Um, he's a double agent. There's a villain that has stuck him into the mix when he was just an agent, and then he profiled right to be the recipient of this helmet. And so now the supervillain's like, now you will be my puppet and you will do my bit. And Mentor ends up getting killed
Wow.
because he sides with the heroes after he's worked with them a while and decides he can't do this. He can't, so death was a real thing.
Hmm.
They had as a nemesis a super villainess called Iron Maiden, except for Doctor Doom. She is one of the most iconic villains of that period. She's not as well known, but her
Yeah.
look, that she was armored and her outlook, and she's a classic femme fatale with Doctor Doom aspirations. Um, you had things like Lightning. He's a super speedster guy. This is suit grants him the ability to tap into what we would call the speed force and accelerate. Great, except that by going into a different time variable that way, he ages quicker. So if he does a minute of running, maybe that's a month of his life gone.
Wow.
So shifting into super
Yeah.
speed is not his
There-
first. I'm sorry.
yeah. There's Iron Maiden there for you.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yes. So the powers were tech, but they came with a price. One of my favorite characters is No Man,
Hmm.
and No Man is he's in the research and development division of this shield-like organization. By the way, Thunder, they get a real. I got to give them kudos over Shield because somebody really wanted to say Thunder because that is the acronym for the Higher United Nations Defense and Enforcement Reserves.
Yeah, that's a
That's
mouthful.
where the Thunder agents come from. Okay, so No Man though he's 76 years old and he's confined to a wheelchair because he's crippled, but he's a
Uh-huh.
brilliant scientist and he makes an android body, and then he perfects the way to take a human consciousness and put it in the body.
Uh-huh.
The body's a little more. It's not like I would put him a little below Captain America as a super soldier. He's a little more durable, and of course he's completely mobile, and that's all good. But he
Hmm.
can still, I mean, take enough damage, he dies.
Yeah.
So when he transfers his body or his consciousness over to this android body, he makes a plant, and he just makes a factory. He's got like just rows of these bodies, and so when he goes out on his first mission, he gets killed, and his
Hmm.
consciousness goes back to the next body.
Yeah.
um, Now they've also determined that he would be a good recipient for a invisibility cloak. So even though his body's, he doesn't have to worry about dying, and he can go transfer himself into a new body. He's always got to look up the last body to get the cloak back.
Uh-huh.
And those kind of little things that it's not easy storytelling that
Sure. Yeah.
really hooked me as a young person on how cool these were. Now we showed you pictures of the issues and stuff, but the really the best thing is DC put out I think 6 volumes of these, and there's a
Hmm.
lot of material because these came out. Tower they didn't want to do like 12-cent and 15-cent books. They put them out in 25-cent, 50 to 60 pages. So there's
Wow.
a lot of material over the course of the 4 years, and
Yeah.
they have got it all in these volumes that you can find, like George said, you can find them secondhand, but have them all together like that, and just a great. And they also, this was kind of cool too. If you they would use something that he had learned in the Golden Age. Each of these issues has like a Thunder agent, like you got Mentor here, and you got Lightning
Hmm.
here, and you got No Man here. But then the last story, they all come together, and the stories are kind of interlocked a bit, kind of like the Justice Society of America used to do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
it seems interesting too because like a lot of the characters or some of the ideas in Thunder Agents you see used again later on, like basically like the hardcore for Valiant.
yep,
These were just normal people and their superpowers were kind of downloaded to them. So like they didn't have powers on the normal until they were downloaded into themselves. And they kind of swapped out stuff like that. And then basically No Man is Spartan from the Wildcats
yeah,
because you have the consciousness of a dead man in an android body, and then when the android body dies, the consciousness goes to another body.
yep, yep.
So it's like, so that's interesting. I like that. Yeah, because I've always heard of the Thunder Agents, but I've never read any of the stuff before or anything like that. So yeah. Well, my first one, basically, one you said you had not heard much about from, let's see, this was 1986. Yeah, 1986 from Marvel, Strike Force Morituri. Peter B. Gillis was the writer. Brent Anderson was the lead artist on here. The series ran for 3 years, but Gillis and Anderson left after the first 24 issues. So after the main guys that created it, they went another year. And then they also did a sequel series called Electric Undertow. It's okay. The first 24 issues are the best. And the plot of this was kind of almost a sci-fi version of Marvel's answer to the Suicide Squad. Because Earth has an alien invasion. We get our butts handed to us, where pretty much we are enslaved by these new alien overlords. Well, you've got a group of the what's left of the U.S. government and our military are trying to always combat the aliens too much. Basically, we just can't. They're just too tough. And a professor figures out a way to give people super abilities to fight against the aliens. The caveat, though, and where the name Morituri comes from, the old gladiators, we who are about to die salute you, like in the Roman Colosseum. So the people who get their powers, they get superpowers. And then they also get a stopwatch that ends in 1 year. Basically, after a year, their powers flare up and they die. And sometimes it's in the midst of battle, so it's kind of heroic. Sometimes it's completely random. Like it's, like they're a home asleep, and boom, they're dead. Yeah. So it's definitely a lot of real world stakes. We lose. I mean, not to spoil anything, but we're going to lose everybody. Anybody who's got superpowers, they're going to die, and it's just a matter of who goes when.
Holy Rogue One, right?
It really is, yeah. But yeah, it's got really good, mature kind of relationships in here. And of course, there's people who have, romantic relationships. There's folks who don't like each other that have to work together. You get a lot of some people that have, kind of the righteous sort of personalities, and then other people that the powers that were given to them are also driving them slightly mad. And so maybe they get bloodlust a little bit there. So you got a lot of that to deal with too. So, but yeah, like I said, they goes for there's 3 volumes of trade paperbacks that are out, and then Electric Undertow is put it in a trade by itself. Also, Strike Force Morituri, you could very easily find this one in the dollar bins. I see this in our dollar bins all the time. And constantly plug it. But yeah, it's like I said, if you're kind of tired of the traditional superhero set, this is a very grown, not mature as in salacious content. It's a very mature, grown up superhero story that has real world stakes in it. Cool. Highly, highly recommend that one.
I've known people that really liked it. I just have never sat down and focused on it, but I've heard good things about it in the past. So now it's on my to read list now. So
there you go. Yeah, like I say, the last year of the book without Gillis and Anderson is still, it's good, but it's not as great as the first 2 years they were on it. Right. So yeah, but at the same time too, you're going to get kind of a new generation. Their 2 years on it is probably what I like about the storytelling. It's the original crew that's in there they get some new members here and there to fill in ones who, get taken out or their powers, flare out. But by the time you get to the 3rd year, it's an entirely different group. And then Electric Undertow deals with a few of the people in the 3rd group, but then there's also some new characters in there. So like I said, it's the first 24 issues is really where it hits the best. So. Cool. All right. Your next selection here.
Yes. Squadron Supreme. So, there was a time in the 80s, 85, 86, was a real game changer for comics. And you had, let's see. You had the coming of Crisis on Infinite Earths. You had John Byrne was getting ready to redefine Superman with Man of Steel, and you had Alan Moore. He got to actually put a ribbon, tie up a bow on the end of the silver and to some degree maybe Bronze Age Superman stories with whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow. And Marvel is kind of taking a back seat at this same period. DC was making some big strides and doing some things that hadn't been done before. This in 85 and into 86. But one of the exceptions to that, I think, could have been called, because of the way it was done, it could have been called Whatever Happened to the Justice League of America.
Yeah.
Because Squadron Supreme, Marvel Comics, written by Mark Grenwald, art is by Bob Hall and Paul Ryan, um, and and also there's a side story in Captain America 314. So it kind of spread into another title a little bit, just a touch, but
Mm-hmm.
you can get these trades very cheaply,
Mm-hmm.
collecting all 12 issues, and so what they did a few years before that, they wanted to, you had people that were writing for comics that had been fans, and they wanted, as kids, they were like, wouldn't it be cool if Spider-Man met Superman?
Mm-hmm.
And is that was going to happen in just a few years down the line, but at the time that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So you had analogs for this team of bad guys called the Squadron Sinister. They sure do seem familiar over at Marvel. They seem like this guy seems like Superman, but bad, and this is a Wonder Woman, but bad.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that already existed, but
Yeah.
what Mark wanted to do was to say, okay, look at all the things that the Justice League over at the Distinguished Competition has said all through the Silver Age they want to do. They have a list, of like, and usually it was in the imaginary stories of, cure all disease, solve all crime, stop wars,
Yeah.
make sure everybody has plenty to eat, just basically make the world better using their superpowers.
Right.
And it's very idealistic. And so there was a story where the Squadron, and a few years after the Squadron Sinister, we got to meet the Squadron Supreme, who were, if the Squadron Sinister was like the Earth 3 superheroes or supervillains that were based on superheroes, well, the Squadron Supreme was the Earth 1 superheroes, the actual hero versions of the Squadron Supreme. And, it is not a light, uh, it's not a light take. Hyperion is Superman. Power
Yeah.
Princess is Wonder Woman. Dr. Spectrum is Green Lantern. Then you've got a few new ones added in, like Nuke, that's Firestorm.
Yeah.
Um, Arcana is Zatanna.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got all these characters, and the problem that they kept writing them into in the regular continuity was that they would get mind controlled by somebody and they would take over and they would do bad stuff.
Right.
And the Avengers finally said, "Would you stop getting mind controlled?" So we come out of their mind control things where they have the whole U.S. economy and civilization is just teetered on the edge. They have just almost destroyed everything. People are standing in food lines trying to get trucks to come in bring groceries.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's just falling apart, and so they take stock over 3 days of what the whole country is like, and then they decide that they are going to take control, and for 1 year, and they are going to solve the problems that they have so far been unable to solve, mainly by adopting the Utopia program that has kept Power Princess, or Princess Power, in her civilization has been peaceful for centuries, and they're not Amazons exactly. It's men and women together in this,
Mm-hmm.
and but so they're going to implement these things.
Right.
The only problem is, and the whole 12 issue series is about this, where does individual freedom stop?
Right.
Where does the betterment of society begin? And what's the line between? Because they do cure 75% of illness, but they can't cure cancer.
Right.
And so you've got these basically like cryopods that they make.
Mm-hmm.
And they restore the economy because those have to be manufactured and they have to be maintained. And anybody that's about to die gets frozen so that they can be resurrected later on when there's a cure. So, that's very positive. Well, gun control, if you don't have criminals with guns, they can't do as much. And so you have to be registered with everybody and all the guns you have, and that doesn't go over well. But they're the Justice League analogs, and so they shut down plants and take them. Well, the only person that can't go along with this is Nighthawk, who's their Batman.
Yeah.
He takes some of the villains. Oh, B-Mod Machine. That was the other one. Apex, one of the brilliant villains, um, helps design when she's brought over to help them. Um, and Tom Thumb is their scientific genius. The behavior modification machines. If
Yeah.
you have been convicted of a felony, you're in a prison. You get to go in the BMod machine, which makes any kind of violent thought you have makes you throw up and violently ill, and you can't function for a while.
Yeah.
So that's the one that everybody has the most trouble with. Some of their villains, they put the villains in it, and then they're like, "Hey, you want to join? Join the squadron." So they got a bunch of villains working with them because, like, Lamprey's probably the most reticent of them, going, "I might as well. I can't do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I can punch you in your perfect face, but I can't because I'm just the thought of it makes me, ill. So I guess so. But you have some people that haven't declared that they have superpowers, and Nighthawk finds them, along with a bunch of the villains that have managed to keep out of the hands of, managed to not get caught and be behavior modified, and some of the other squadron, they're human in this. People die, characters get killed, and so they end up joining him, and it very much reminds you of things that came later, like Kingdom Come. The Batman team, the Superman team, the fate of the world hanging in the balance. So if that sounds like something that you would appreciate, it's a wonderful series. It is kind of that Silver Age old school way of telling the story. It's very verbal. It takes a while to read these books. There's a lot of dialogue, but
A lot of dialogue.
Yeah, but if you like those stories of the Justice League, and you wanted to see how it might have played out in a more realistic setting, I can't recommend anything better than Squadron Supreme.
Yeah. And of course, the squad has been brought back multiple times because you at one point had the Marvel Max with the was it Ultimate line, or
don't remember, but I know
there's a line of the because he had the Squadron, the Nighthawk had some miniseries, and Hyperion did too, and then most recently you had the Heroes Reborn story that Jason Aaron did during his run on Avengers, which basically was once again the Squadron being controlled, but this time was by Mephisto. So he wasn't mind controlling them. He was just doing his good old fashioned mambo jambo manipulation stuff that Mephisto does. But yeah, that was a good series too. And before I get to my next book here, an update from Miss Kelly Gettner there. Current donation total is at $860 right now. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. So my next one here, and basically I'm going over to DC for this one because I love me my obscure characters, and you can't get any more obscure than Mr. Rory Regan, the Ragman. And if we were talking with David Papose yesterday, I'd made a little mention of Ragman because, one of the few DC Jewish superheroes. Marvel's got a couple of themselves, most notably Kitty Pryde, but DC is, they got Rory here. So this series came out in 1993, written by Elaine Lee and art by Gabriel Morissette. This series takes Rory out of his traditional Gotham City, because, yes, he is originally from Gotham, and basically he's kind of a bit of a Batman-centric character. It takes him to New Orleans, where he's living above a jazz club. And this series really gets... Rory's original origin is that he's a Vietnam vet and is troubled by PTSD. And then basically when he basically comes back home, he's living with his uncle, who basically runs like a curio shop or like a pawn shop sort of thing like that. And one day he finds this green cloak made of rags and finds out that it is referred to as the Tatter Medallion, which basically is a cloak that essentially uses the souls of the dead to power him to avenge them or right wrongs or, do some sort of justice. So again, sort of a, Jewish mysticism similar to the Golem. That's basically supposed to be used as something positive to protect. And so that's what the Tatter Medallion is. So, so Rory is in New Orleans, being plagued by nightmares again from his time in Vietnam. Uh, Meets a couple and starts kind of falling for the woman and realizes that she's a bit of like a voodoo priestess, and finding out that basically there's a lot of souls and a lot of stuff going on in the graveyards of New Orleans, possibly caused by some other mysticism as well. Some bad people trying to use the souls of the dead doing things there. So Ragman gets involved with that. But what this series does is it really gets into his faith, gets into there's a whole basically 2 issues within this. I think this is the 8-issue series. Because Ragman's had a bunch of different miniseries, but yeah, this was an 8-issue series. But it gets really into the history of in World War II with the Holocaust, and kind of getting into his Jewish faith and his heritage and how that all ties in with the Tanner Medallion as well. So yeah, this really kind of opens up a lot more of Rory's story and his mythology, far more than any other appearance he's done. Because most time at this point, he had some appearances like in Brave and the Bold, some Batman appearances here and there, and then he did have a 6-issue miniseries in what was it, the mid to late 70s, and then we didn't really see him again until kind of like, he's one of those characters that disappears for a while and then they'll bring him back.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like he's been brought back a few times. Like he was part of Shadow Pact, which is kind of like the magic team of the DC universe. And then we haven't seen Rory in a while, but they made a new Ragman series about maybe 10 years ago. That was another Iraq War vet that basically his whole platoon was killed and he was the only survivor. He gets a Tanner Medallion, and basically it has all the souls of his platoon members. And so, but the platoon members are they are much more interactive with him. So they're talking to him, they're propelling him along. Sometimes they're taunting him, so there's all kinds of, relationship that he's got. So that was an interesting series there, Chip. I can't remember the subtitle for that one was, but yeah, that was.
If he sounds familiar, remember, he did get a live action treatment on Arrow also.
Yes,
for a little while.
Sure did.
I don't know for one, but he did get it. If this sounds like a familiar concept, yeah, you may have seen him already.
Yep. Yeah. So, of course, he's been involved in some different animated series as well from time to time. But, yeah, his only live-action treatment was Blessed Arrow there. Yep. So, Ragman, like I said, always been, because he's just a vigilante character. He is human. The only abilities are coming from the cloak. So, if he's not wearing the cloak, he's 100% human. So,
right.
Yeah. So, great kind of obscure vigilante character here. So, all right. Your next pick here, and this is a good one, folks. If you guys haven't read this one here, you really need to.
Camelot 3000. This is the beginning of a lot of that era that I talked about at DC.
Yeah.
They're making some inroads, and they are, producing some mature. They have gotten rid of the Comics Code Authority, and they are running with the idea of comics that can be for anybody.
Yep.
Camelot 3000 DC Comics, written by Mike W. Barr. Art is by Brian Boland, both inside and out, which, if you like his covers, 82 to 84, it's a 12-issue series. It was basically the first maxi series for DC, and the first of their titles printed on Baxter paper. One of the first direct market offerings from the company. And, it was also, I think, well-timed. The movie Excalibur had come out a year before. And it may not have been, it was a modest financial success, but I was in with D&D groups at the time, and it was, trust me, we loved Excalibur. We loved that. And I had just gotten out of high school and college, and we had studied The Once and Future King by T.H. White. And we had read sections of Thomas Mallory's King Arthur, Arthurian Legends. And so, not to take anything away from Mr. Barr, because it's a very cool story, but the artwork by Brian Boland is just, you need to get, and this is in lots of trade paperbacks. It's easy to find. It's not hard to find very affordable copies. And just for the Boland artwork alone, it's worth it. So basically, it is a sci-fi story set in the year 3000, obviously, and there's an alien invasion going on, and mankind is reeling under the power of these invading reptilian creatures. And a young guy and his family, Britain is one of the places that's hit the hardest. They're trying to escape. They're going through. They're trying to get to the coast. France has got a industrialist there who started a camp, and basically he's taking in all the refugees from England that are being unhomed by this invasion, and so they're trying to get to the docks to get across there to France, and they end up taking a round to their car, and it kills his parents. It throws Tom out, and he's a college student, and he's volunteered to help on archaeological digs at Glastonbury Tor, which is where this accident is close to. So he manages to evade the alien patrols, and he goes into that underground site to escape the aliens, and he finds a section that wasn't there before, a chamber. And it says, "Here lies Arthur, the once and future king." And he awakens King Arthur, who legend says was supposed to return to England in the time of its greatest need. Well, we got to catch Arthur up on all the things he's missed in his era. And it's 3000, so there's a lot of retro sci-fi stuff. There's a lot of politics involved.
Yep.
And, if history is cyclical, then you can tell, because all of these world leaders who are out only for themselves, they remind you of the people that were in power when this was written, So
Yeah.
it's a pretty cudgel treatment, although not necessarily unfair of some of the foibles of that era.
Very true.
But so, and then we get Merlin, who's brought back to life. There's a dramatic scene. Oh, they go to get Excalibur. This really hooked me. This was the first thing that I was like, I got to get this whole series, because there's there at the beautiful, perfect pond where the sword was thrown, and where the Lady of the Lake gave the sword to Arthur in the first place. There's a nuclear power plant there now. But they managed to get inside, and there's a cooling tank. And when Merlin calls it forth, you see the you can see the Lady of the Lake in the cooling tank bringing the sword up.
That's crazy.
That blend of the sci-fi and Arthurian legend works all the way through. And also, Merlin has planted the souls of Arthur's most powerful knights to be reincarnated by him. And so you have a global force. You have a samurai. You have an American military commander, the female commander, who's Guinevere. You have what are called neo-men, who are sort of like slave labor that they have genetically engineered from or changed their DNA. They're like prisoners of war and people that prisoners and the scum of society that they turn into slave labor by making them into these big neo-men. One of that's I believe that's Percival, the one that actually finds the Holy Grail. And then that industrialist who was being kind and sheltering people in France, that's Lancelot. So you get all these in this global. Oh, and Sir Tristan, because God has a sense of humor. He's the most womanizing, loosely moral of all the knights, and he is reincarnated as a woman. Big part of the plot. So
big part of the plot.
Yep.
Actually, I'm sorry to interrupt. But yeah, but that also it ends up sort of bringing up, because basically Tristan gets in a relationship in the book. So there's sort of some LGBTQ issues that are in this book. They're treated very well, respective. And if it's 1982, so that's way ahead of its time there. So
gender identity plays a big, but other characters also have the differences in their outlooks, the differences in their global backgrounds makes the knight look at the world differently than they would have originally. And it's all blended together very nicely. It is a
Yeah,
product of its time, but I think if you like the Arthurian legend, and if you like things that came along later, like Vertigo titles and things like that,
yeah.
you should pick up a copy and read Camelot 3000.
Yeah, this would have been a perfect in the Vertigo imprint, but
Yep.
yeah, but yeah, you're right. I mean, this was a kind of a front runner because this was presented as a special event sort of thing. You could only find this in comic book stores, so yeah, this was treated as a big deal.
Hmm.
Yeah, it sure was. So, and of course, we were talking about this before the show started. It was a little frustrating for readers because the last two issues, like, there's a huge gap between like issues 10 and 11, and then an even bigger gap between issues 11 and 12.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
so,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
so, yeah, so even back in the 80s, folks, books were still late then. So. All right. My next selection here, and this actually is a Vertigo title here. This is Garth Ennis, John Higgins' Pride and Joy. So this came out in 1997. Garth is still doing Preacher, but Preacher's about to wrap up, so he's getting close to wrapping it up. But Garth is super duper popular right now. This is a very much crime noir storyline here. Basically, the bottom ground here, you've got Jimmy Cavanaugh, who is a guy who's basically got a criminal past. He's trying to make right by his family because he's a recent widower. So he's got his two children who are, I think, like the youngest is 12 and the oldest, his boy, is like an early teenager. So he's like, well, let's take him out here in the woods out in Jersey, and maybe do a little camping and try to do a little bonding sort of thing like that. Well, unfortunately, Jimmy's past is coming back to haunt him, and he's got to deal with basically a bunch of bad guys that are out to get him. Well, he's on his trip with his children. So now they're basically out trapped in the woods, on the run from basically a bunch of gangsters, and basically Jimmy's trying to survive and protect his children at the same time. And low on bullets and heavy on heavy on adversity. So, but yeah, it's a 4-issue series. It has been collected in trade paperbacks as well. But yeah, this was just, for me, like, I really enjoyed Preacher, and that's kind of got me as a Garth Ennis fan. This was the next thing of his I had read, and like this cemented it for me. Like, I love when he does crime noir stuff. So like, and of course, this is maybe 2 years before his run on Punisher starts. When he was given that. So it's very much a lot of the same themes and the feel of his Punisher run started, I think, here at Pride and Joy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, definitely worth checking out. Of course, nice, good, like the art on the cover is very indicative of the interior art that John Higgins does. So very dark, very heavy inks. So yeah, it's good stuff. So I'm honestly surprised this has never turned into a movie.
I was just
Like,
going to say, that sounds very cinematic.
yeah, it's extremely cinematic. So, like I said, it's 4 issues, so it just moves so fast. So, but yeah, good stuff there. All right, your next one here, and this one near and dear. I wanted to pick this one for myself, and then when you got it, I was like, cool, you talk about it. But yeah, this is a series that is very near and dear to mine and to Clyde's heart here. Please.
Strike Back. Okay,
Yes.
so the bad news is it's going to be hard for you to find this. You don't. I stand corrected. You won't find this as a trade paperback because it doesn't exist that way. This was from the independent era of comics when people were putting out stuff that weren't part of any of the major companies, and that included Bravura and Malibu, and they managed to. Everybody was looking for their own kind of thing, apart from DC and Marvel, things where they could keep rights, where they got more of the percentage of the profits and things. And so Strike Back came during that time. It was by Bravura and Malibu, who put out 3 issues, and then Image. It was supposed to be a 6-issue series, but Image gave them 2 more to finish it up with issues 4 and 5. And reissued the first 3. So yeah, this was at the time when the bubble was beginning to burst on the speculative market, and comic shops were closing, and Marvel was going into bankruptcy, and this was at a rough time, and you can tell that because this is probably one of the reasons why it's never been put together into a trade. But So it is written by co-creators Jonathan Peterson and Kevin McGuire, and the art is by Kevin McGuire, and that you probably know him best from the Justice League
Mhm.
series that he did. That was the kind of the funny version after Crisis on Infinite Earths. That had all the weird different characters that they ever had before.
Mhm.
And he, those are, people think of it as the funny Justice League, and it is, but it's also got a heart.
It
And
does. Yeah.
we see that Kevin McGuire a heart and humor in these 5 issues that we have here.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the good news is, like I said, bad news you can't get in a trade. The good news is it's not hard to get out there. The first 3 issues, those Bravura Malibu ones, I saw them on an online auction for $6.99 or make an offer. So they're out there. You can find them. It's not a problem. But um, so um, in essence, Strike Back was not a team at all. You think of a team because it's got all these different characters. No, 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 no. It's not a team. You have a world where you have super adventurers of different calibers, types, and super villains, bad guys, and but they're very human. A lot of the heroes don't like each other. You have
Mhm.
vigilantes who will definitely drop people down elevator shafts, and then you have people that like Rascal, who is just goofy. He has a scarf, a red and white scarf that can become anything that he can imagine. That's his power, and
Mhm.
he's goofy. He's very uh, he's what would you go? He's a free spirit, and he
Yeah.
uses his powers. He uses that silly scarf in ways that are pretty brilliant at times. Um, his girlfriend is Nikita. She's the beta test for the Mother of Dragons from Game of Thrones because she can call on. She finds out a huge, full size, 150-foot long, fire breathing dragon to do her
Mhm.
bidding and protect her. And they have fought bad guys and stuff before, especially she hasn't. She finds out about her powers as the thing progresses, but he has um, been with fighting bad guys. And you can
Mhm.
imagine somebody that has a scarf that can become anything. If you have villains who have it in for, because you makes you look bad when he beats you. It's kind of that
Yeah.
Spider-Man thing of he beat me and but he didn't just beat me, he ridiculed me and beat
Yep.
me. So he's the kind of guy that makes enemies that'll come at you if they get a chance.
Yep.
So they have what is called the strike back protocol. He, they don't like each other, a lot of the heroes, or they don't get along, or they see justice delivered differently, but they all recognize that a lone wolf makes easy prey. But if you have a code word that goes out, if somebody picks on you, suddenly that bad guy that hates Rascal has to face a whole bunch of other people too.
Mhm.
And I always thought that was a brilliant idea. When you get them together, you can tell they are not friends. Well, some of them are, but you
Some
know,
are, but some, yeah, most aren't.
most are not. They would not make a team. What did they say in the Avengers movie? We're liquefied chaos. We're just yeah.
Yeah.
They would not hold it together. But um, what they managed to do when they do come together is take care of business, and it's a 5 issue chase to find Nikita gets abducted by a group of bounty hunters that
Mhm.
have dog themes. They're actually hired by her parents, who's kind
Yep.
of Mars is her father. Mars Dragon Rider. Her name is Nikita Ryder, but we find out it's actually Dragon Rider. He's kind of the
Yep.
Doctor Doom of their world. He seems to have some good qualities. We find out he's not as bad as they probably think, but he's pretty ruthless when he's got a. It's like this needs to be done for the good of everybody. So I'm going to force you to do it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So but he's trying to bring her back home. She's had nothing to do with her parents. She's cut them off. She thinks that they're just deplorable. And so
Mhm.
she's been living in the world, and so they hire this group to take her. And Doberman and Rottweiler are the two, the head and the lieutenant of these bounty hunters. And
Like
so
all, yeah, so like you said, dog themed. Yeah.
dog theme, canine theme. Um, and so, all of a sudden, and this guy called Midnight Devil, he's a new guy with super leaping abilities and a tail that comes off of his uniform to make a weapon.
Yeah.
Um, he's kind of our intro. he's just encountered Rascal as Nikita's been kidnapped, so he offers to help. And all of a sudden, he's surrounded by other heroes like Jade Cobra, accomplished swordswoman and fighter, but she's also got a half deal on her face. She's apparently scarred. We don't ever get to see it. You got Sherman, who's a human organic being at one time that has been enclosed in a tank like a mad RoboCop version, but he's a tank and he has big guns and he can get around quickly like a vehicle. And then you have Short Fuse. Short Fuse is a young guy with zero patience, but mega wattage electrical energy storage and projection powers. Those descriptions are about all we know about these characters, because we just meet them in passing. We see some of their powers, and they have lived. These characters, though, were so well defined in those little bits. They have lived rent free in my head for 32 years. We were playing RPG tabletop role play games of superheroes. We made characters that were basically analogs for them. We enjoyed them so much.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that would have been great to see it continue, but we've only got 5 issues. It's worth looking at, especially if you like Maguire's run on the Justice League. If you like that sense of humor, I think you'll love this.
Absolutely. And Maguire is just when it comes to facial expressions, is like one of the kings, the absolute kings of art. So it's like, it makes these characters so, fleshed out and so real. So, well, we got a little less than 10 minutes, so we got a couple of the books we still got to talk about, so we'll have to kind of rush through them probably here. My pick, next one here, this is the 6-issue Justice League Cry for Justice miniseries. So this follows Final Crisis. So the Justice League have essentially kind of broken up. Batman is dead. And so an offshoot Justice League forms that basically it's like, we're tired of our friends getting killed, or, because Martian Manhunter was murdered, basically prior to this series starting. Then you also have Roy Harper's attack by Prometheus. So you got a lot of supervillains attacking the good guys and either killing them or, getting pretty close to it. So the team is essentially formed by Oliver Queen and Hal Jordan, Green Lantern and Green Arrow. You got like Supergirl's on here, Kongorilla, Ray Palmer, Adam. So an interesting kind of blend of people that you don't usually see in these these traditional teams here. But the art that Mario Cascoli does. So James Robinson's the writer, but Mario Cascoli is the artist on here. These are just the covers themselves are so cinematic, but the art itself fits as well. But yeah, it's like this is kind of the precursor to James Robinson's run on Justice League. But yeah, this is a hard-nosed, we're no F's given. We are done being punching bags. We're striking back. So yeah, this is a hard-nosed Justice League series. So highly, highly recommend that one there.
Okay.
Yep. And your final one here.
Starman. Yeah.
Yep.
So Starman, this is DC Comics, written by James Robinson, art by many fine souls, but mostly Tony Harris. It went from, and this is when you go, well, this is a long run, 1994 to 2001, 80 issues, and an 81st issue that came out in 2010 is kind of just a follow-up, little bit. But it had a long run. I remember people coming to conventions dressed as Starman, this version of Starman, and the Shade, which is one of his nemesis friends, as it turns out, as the series goes along. But I can remember all this being big. But okay, I love and I hate this book. I love it because Robinson made a deal. I think maybe Harris is included too, where DC cannot use this version of Starman without their express permission. He set it up so that Stargirl carries on his legacy after the Starman legacy that he is in the middle of. But that leaves a gap. I read a thing the other day from a couple of years ago where a Reddit user said, I just started the Starman series by James Robinson at DC. Wow. Why does nobody talk about this? Because he's mentioned a few times offhand, but they can't use him. They can't use this version of the character. And so it makes a gap. And new readers if there's nothing to connect them to it, something that is mentioned and sends them back to it, they don't know about it. So it was popular at the time. It has difficulty, but I love the idea that this is a guy who didn't want to be a superhero. His dad was a superhero. His older brother did everything, it was like hero worship, and walked in his father's footsteps to, I want to be Starman. I want to be a Starman. I want to be a Starman.
Yeah.
Jack opened a secondhand shop. Jack, when I first read it, I realized that he's me. He didn't want to be a superhero, and I ended up working in law enforcement, but it wasn't my first pick. I went in kind of like at first. He loves old things, old collectible things. He has a secondhand shop.
Yeah.
And on the first issue, they burn down the supervillains reach out, they kill his brother who's just become Starman. They kill him. They kill David. They're wanting to make the elder Starman pay for all the humiliations he's dealt them. And it's the Mist and his family who are taking final revenge. And they come after Jack and they burn his store down. He's talking about all the things. He's got original painted Hawaiian shirts from the 50s that are going up in flames. He's got Big Little books. He has a vintage Captain Action figure in the box. And I'm like, that's my favorite toy of all time. And I'm like, my God, he's me. So his dad says, you got to take over. You have to take over. And he does. Reluctant hero. They burned his shop, though. So he's like, it's on now. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing the thin helmet thing that you wear for a costume. That's goofy. So he gets a heavy-duty leather jacket that has a lining so he can stay warm up in the clouds. And it's got an astrology symbol on back. His father is an astronomer, because the star power that collects in the cosmic rod is what gives all the Starmen their power. So, but the astrology on the back, he's like, well, that'll piss Dad off. Okay, I'll wear that. And then he gets anti-flare goggles from World War II, and because the thing puts out a big blast of solar energy, which can be blinding. So it's a practical uniform with t-shirt and jeans. Yeah. And I'm like, that's what I would wear if I was going to go out and do stuff like he's doing. And he has limited, his dad gives him this cosmic rod, which is like a prototype, but as a staff, he can use it to fight. He's got a little bit of martial arts skills. And so over the course of this 80-issue series, we get character studies of why Opal City, which is hardly known at the time, becomes equivalent to Gotham in its characterization. The Shade is a bad guy. We find out he's a bad guy with a code, and he's not, he will kill you. He's from the 1800s. You cross him in a bad way, in a way that is like, you harmed innocent people that had done nothing to you. You're a dead, you're better off dead. He's quick to say that. That's the most villainous part of his personality. The people that he kills, they deserve it. They are not. He ends up defending Opal City along with Jack. Jack Knight is the Starman that we're talking about here, and they're talking about making a new series. This is your chance. Sometime probably in the next few years, DC's maybe going to launch a new series with the same creators. Get them now before they go up in price and you can't find them.
There you go. Well, we're almost wrapped up here for our panel here. This has been a lot of fun, just getting to talk shop here. But the reason for the season and why we are here is Comic Books for Kids. And we got a special guest joining us in here, Mr. Mark Weiss himself.
Hey, guys. Listen, it has been a blast from the past listening to you guys. I almost wanted to run downstairs in my basement, which I have, and pull out my copies of Camelot 3000 bagged and boarded, purchased when they were brand new, but I want to add my top 5 in the last minute we have.
Sure, please.
Got to be a Hellblazer, which really dove into John Constantine, and before that, a Swamp Thing by Alan Moore, which really helped develop the character of Constantine, right? And I have to mention some of my favorites from the first comic explosion when Grell started doing John Sable, and was it Star Slayer he did as well? Yeah. And then Tim Truman and Ostrander did Grimjack, which I thought was an incredible, innovative, those would have been some of my top 5 that I probably would have shared as well. But Listen, everything you guys chose, I can't even argue with any of them. They're phenomenal. Robinson, by the way, Clyde Robinson is, was such an underrated writer in the way he just fleshed out all his characters. Incredible. But thank you guys. That's the real reason I want is to say thank you, and thank you for allowing me to geek out with all the people who are watching as I enjoyed your blast from the past as well.
But thank you, Mark. Yeah. Like I said, Comic Books for Kids is an outstanding organization, folks. Please support them. Donate right down there. The link at the bottom, and of course, the link is going to be up for a full week, well after these podcasts are over. So you have all the time in the world to donate. So please do so. But it is now past our time, so we got to wrap up here. So thank you, Mark, for joining us. Thank you, Clyde, for being here with us. So. You guys have yourselves a wonderful weekend, and we got a lot more coming up next on the Multiverse Funraiser. We'll see you next time.
The Multiverse Funraiser is partnering with Comic Books for Kids to raise money for their cause. Their mission is to provide comic books to children in hospitals and cancer centers across the United States, Canada, and the UK. We believe in the importance of providing stories that promote hope and bravery to kids who are facing things that are scarier than any supervillain. And we truly believe in this cause. To donate, you can either go to our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/The Multiverse Funraiser or directly to comicbooksforkids.org.
The Multiverse Funraiser would like to thank our sponsors: Earth Dog Studios, Clobbering Comics, The Art of Brian Rodman, Studio Moonfall, Elusive Comics, and of course, the Phoenix Sisters Entertainment Network for hosting this event. Learn how to support these businesses on the MVFR website.